Buckle up, everybody, because today we're going deep into some seriously potent cosmic energy with Lorenzo's latest report and tarot reading.
Definitely a lot to unpack here.
It's not for the faint of heart, especially if you happen to be a Sagittarius.
Yeah, definitely intense themes this time around.
We're talking karmic showdowns,
Oh, yeah.
emotional earthquakes,
Big time.
and a chance to break free from those patterns that have been holding you back, potentially for lifetimes.
That's right.
Now, Lorenzo, he never sugarcoats anything.
Nope.
But that's what makes his reading so powerful, so we're going to dive right in.
Let's do it.
The first thing that jumped out at me was his take on the March full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo.
Oh, yeah.
He's not seeing this as just another astrological event.
Yeah.
He's calling it a full-blown karmic reckoning.
Especially for Sagittarius.
Okay, whoa, karmic reckoning sounds pretty heavy.
Yeah. It's definitely not light and fluffy energy.
What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, he's saying that this eclipse is like a cosmic spotlight shining on all those things you've been avoiding, all those choices that haven't been serving your highest good. It's about stripping away illusions, facing the consequences, and finally taking responsibility for your actions.
So no more sweeping things under the rug.
Not a chance. Lorenzo is very clear that this eclipse is about accountability. Sagittarius is at a crossroads, and this cosmic event is forcing a choice. Evolve or stay trapped in a soul-crushing cycle.
And he's pretty blunt about the potential consequences of choosing the latter.
He doesn't mince words.
So what happens if Sagittarius tries to ignore this cosmic wake-up call?
Well, Lorenzo predicts some pretty intense fallout. He's talking major emotional turmoil, feelings of fear and loss, even the potential collapse of something you've been clinging to maybe for far too long.
It's like the universe is giving you a shakeup, whether you're ready for it or not.
Exactly. It's a cosmic course correction.
This is where it gets interesting to me. Lorenzo argues that this pain, this potential upheaval, is actually necessary, that it's the only way to break free from those deeply ingrained self-destructive patterns.
Right. He's not saying it's going to be easy, but he is saying it's necessary for growth. It's about confronting those shadow parts of yourself, you know, the ones you'd rather pretend don't exist.
Yeah.
And finally, dealing with the root causes of your suffering.
And he gets very specific about where this emotional earthquake might hit hardest.
Oh, he does. He points to finances, relationships, and even the potential for a personal crisis that forces you to reevaluate everything.
It's like this eclipse is shining a light on all those areas where you've been out of alignment with your true self.
That's a great way to put it.
Lorenzo describes this period as a real pressure cooker for Sagittarius, a test to see if they'll surrender to the same old toxic cycle or finally choose to rewrite their script. But he also acknowledges that real freedom can be terrifying for a lot of people.
That's such an important point. He talks about how most people are so afraid of the unknown, of what might happen if they let go of their old ways, that they'd rather stay stuck in a life that's slowly killing their spirit.
It's the comfort of the familiar, even if it's slowly killing you.
Exactly.
But for those brave enough to lean into the discomfort, to face their fears head on, Lorenzo outlines some incredible transformations.
Absolutely. He talks about shedding the need for external validation, cutting ties with a past that no longer serves you, and finally aligning your actions with your true self.
He sees this eclipse as an initiation, a doorway to a new path, but one that requires courage and a willingness to step into the unknown.
He's definitely not sugarcoating the urgency of this moment.
No, it sounds like Sagittarius needs to make a choice and make it fast.
He's definitely emphasizing that hesitation will only lead to deeper entrapment in the same cycle. He's saying that this is a now or never moment for Sagittarius to break free from the past and step into their power.
Okay, so we've talked about the overall energy of this eclipse. Now let's get into the specifics. Lorenzo, as always, provides a really detailed breakdown of the astrological aspects at play, and it gets pretty complex.
It does. It's a lot to take in.
He starts with the eclipse itself, which is happening in Virgo in the 10th house, and conjunct the South Node, also in Virgo.
Right. And even if you're not a total astrology nerd, understanding these placements is key to unlocking what this eclipse means for Sagittarius.
Okay, so break it down for us. What's the significance of Virgo, the 10th house in the South Node?
Okay, so Virgo is all about details, analysis, and striving for perfection. It's about getting things right, being of service, and refining your craft. The 10th house, on the other hand, rules career, public image, and your overall life path. It's about how you show up in the world and the legacy you want to leave behind. And the South Node, well, that's where things get karmic. It represents past life patterns, old wounds, and those ingrained habits that we tend to repeat even if they're no longer serving us.
Okay, I see where this is going. So with the eclipse happening in Virgo in the 10th house and conjunct the South Node, It sounds like Sagittarius's career and public life are about to undergo a major overhaul, one that forces them to confront their deepest insecurities and karmic baggage.
Exactly. Lorenzo is saying that anything in your career that's not aligned with your true purpose, anything you've been doing out of obligation or fear is going to come crumbling down. He uses the tarot card judgment to symbolize this energy.
Hmm.
It's a call to face the truth, to be accountable for your actions, and to make choices that are in alignment with your soul's highest calling.
So no more hiding behind excuses or pretending everything's fine.
Nope. And to make things even more intense, Lorenzo points to the South Node's association with the Devil card in tarot.
Uh,
He's saying this eclipse is about confronting those self-imposed limitations, those addictions and entrapments that have kept you stuck in the same destructive patterns.
so what happens if Sagittarius tries to resist this cosmic push? What if they're not ready to face their demons?
Lorenzo warns of some pretty serious consequences. He talks about the potential for public exposure, career setbacks, and a harsh realization that your past choices have very real, very tangible consequences. He's basically saying that the universe is going to force your hand one way or another.
It's like being given an ultimatum: evolve or have your world turned upside down.
Exactly. And he's clear that this isn't about punishment. It's about redirection, a course correction that's designed to get you back on track with your soul's purpose.
Okay, so we've got this potent eclipse energy in Virgo in the 10th house, conjunct the South Node. What other astrological aspects are at play here?
Lorenzo then brings in Mars, which during this eclipse is in Cancer in the 8th house.
Wait, Mars in the 8th house, that sounds intense.
Mars is the planet of action, energy, and drive, while the 8th house is all about those deep, often hidden aspects of ourselves. It's associated with death, transformation, other people's resources, and those intense emotional experiences that force us to confront our shadow selves.
So how does Mars, the planet of action, play into this already volatile mix?
Well, Lorenzo points out that the eclipse forms a challenging aspect to Mars, which he sees as a potential trigger for sudden, even violent change. It's like this energy is shaking things up from the inside out, forcing you to confront what's been buried and make some radical changes.
He even links this energy to the Tower card in the tarot, right?
Yes, which symbolizes those sudden, unexpected upheavals that can completely dismantle our old reality. It's not always a comfortable experience, but it can be incredibly liberating in the long run.
So we're talking about potential shakeups in those areas ruled by the 8th, house finances, shared resources, and even intimate relationships.
Exactly. Lorenzo's advice: don't resist, lean into the destruction, allow those outdated structures to crumble, and trust that something new and more authentic will emerge from the ashes.
So far, it doesn't sound like this eclipse is going to be a walk in the park for Sagittarius.
Definitely not. And to add another layer of complexity, the eclipse also opposes Saturn, which happens to be in Pisces in the 4th house.
Okay, so we've got the eclipse in Virgo in the 10th house, squaring off against Saturn and Pisces in the 4th house. I'm already feeling the tension.
It's a lot of astrological jargon, but basically it means there's this major conflict between your public life and your private life, between your ambitions and your emotional needs, between the person you show the world and the person you are behind closed doors.
And Saturn, being the planet of karma, discipline, and responsibility, isn't exactly known for being light and fluffy. What does Lorenzo say about Saturn's role in all of this?
He explains that Saturn in the 4th house can bring up a lot of heavy stuff related to family home and those early childhood experiences that shaped who you are today. He sees it as a confrontation with your roots, your foundation, and those subconscious patterns that have been holding you back.
So it's not just about external changes in your career and public life. It's about dealing with your inner world, those emotional wounds and limiting beliefs that you've been carrying around for years, maybe even lifetimes.
Exactly. And with Saturn in Pisces, which is a very sensitive and intuitive sign, this confrontation can be especially emotional. Lorenzo connects this energy to the Moon card, which represents our subconscious desires, our deepest fears, and those illusions we cling to for comfort.
It sounds like a recipe for some serious inner turmoil.
It can be, but Lorenzo stresses that this is a necessary part of the process. Saturn demands that we take responsibility for our actions, that we face the consequences of our choices, and that we finally grow up and become the mature, accountable adults we're meant to be.
No more escapism or denial allowed.
Not with Saturn at the helm. He's here to make sure you deal with your stuff whether you like it or not.
So we've got this intense opposition between the eclipse and Saturn, triggering a major confrontation with our past, our deepest fears, and those illusions that have been keeping us from living a truly authentic life.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any heavier, Lorenzo throws in another twist. The eclipse also opposes Neptune, which happens to be in Pisces in the 4th house, right alongside Saturn.
Wait, so both Saturn and Neptune are in Pisces in the fourth house, opposing the eclipse. That sounds like a recipe for complete emotional overload.
It's definitely a lot to process. Remember, Neptune is the planet of dreams, illusions, spirituality, and let's be honest, a little bit of delusion.
So how does Neptune complicate things further?
Well, Lorenzo explains that Neptune in Pisces can create a fog of confusion, making it hard to see things clearly. It can amplify those escapist tendencies and make you more susceptible to deception, both from yourself and from others.
So it's like this eclipse is shining a spotlight on all those areas where you've been in denial, especially when it comes to your emotional foundations and those deeply held beliefs about yourself and your family.
Exactly, and with Neptune opposing the eclipse, those illusions are likely to be shattered, which can lead to a period of disillusionment, confusion, and even a spiritual crisis.
Lorenzo uses the Hangman card to represent this energy, right?
He does, and it's a powerful image. The hanged man is suspended upside down, symbolizing a need to surrender to the unknown, to let go of control, and to see the world from a completely different perspective. It's about surrendering to a higher power and trusting that even though things might feel chaotic and confusing right now, you're being guided towards a higher purpose.
It's about letting go of the old story and embracing the transformative power of the unknown, even if it feels scary and disorienting.
Exactly. And Lorenzo points out that with Neptune and Saturn both in Pisces in the fourth house, this surrender might involve a deep dive into your emotional world, a confrontation with your childhood wounds, and a dismantling of those limiting beliefs that have been keeping you from truly loving and accepting yourself.
Okay, so we've got this intense opposition between the eclipse in Virgo in the 10th house and both Saturn and Neptune in Pisces in the 4th house. It sounds like a recipe for some serious soul searching.
Right.
But is there any hope for Sagittarius amidst all this cosmic chaos?
There is, amidst all this intensity, there's also a glimmer of hope. Lorenzo points out that the eclipse forms a harmonious aspect to Uranus, which happens to be in Taurus in the 6th house.
Okay, so tell us about Uranus. What kind of energy does it bring to the table?
Uranus is the planet of sudden change, liberation, innovation, and those unexpected breakthroughs that can completely turn your life upside down. It's about breaking free from restrictive patterns, embracing your individuality, and stepping outside of your comfort zone.
And with Uranus in Taurus, which is a sign that values stability and routine, it sounds like this could be about breaking free from those comfortable but ultimately limiting patterns that have been keeping you stuck in a rut.
Exactly. Think about those daily routines, those habits, those beliefs that you've been clinging to for dear life, even though they're no longer serving you. Uranus in Taurus is here to shake things up and show you that there's a whole other way of living a way that's more aligned with your true self.
Lorenzo even connects this energy to the Fool card in the tarot, right?
Yes, and it's a perfect symbol for this Uranian energy. The Fool is about taking that leap of faith, embracing the unknown, and trusting that even if you don't know where you're going, you'll land on your feet.
So it's about being open to new possibilities, even if they seem risky or unconventional.
Exactly. And with Uranus in the 6th house, which rules work, health, and daily routines, this could manifest as a sudden job change, a shift in your daily habits, or even a radical new approach to your well-being.
So even amidst all this intensity, this eclipse is offering Sagittarius a chance to reinvent themselves, to break free from those limitations they've imposed on themselves, and to create a life that's more in alignment with their authentic desires.
Exactly. And Lorenzo reminds us that Uranus is also associated with a Hierophant card in the tarot.
I thought the Hierophant was all about tradition and following the rules.
Yeah.
How does that fit in with Uranus's rebellious energy?
Well, Lorenzo explains that the Hierophant can represent those structures and belief systems that can either liberate us or keep us trapped. He's saying that this eclipse is a chance to question the rules you've been living by, to challenge those expectations that you've internalized, and to ask yourself if they're truly serving you.
So it's about reclaiming your power and making choices that are in alignment with your true self, rather than what society or your family expects of you.
Exactly. It's about breaking free from those outdated structures and creating a life that's truly your own.
This has been a lot to take in. I think we need to take a break and let our listeners process all of this before we move on to the next part.
Sounds good to me. We'll be back soon to dive deeper into Lorenzo's advice on how to navigate this intense eclipse energy.
We'll be right back.
After a quick break.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into part 2 of our deep dive into Lorenzo's predictions for Sagittarius during this crazy intense eclipse period.
Definitely a lot to cover.
We covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
But now I'm really curious, like, how do we actually navigate this energy? It's one thing to understand the astrological influences.
Yeah,
But it's a whole other thing to know what to do about it.
absolutely.
So what does Lorenzo have to say about that?
Well, he doesn't disappoint. He gives us some very specific guidance on how to not only survive this eclipse, but to actually thrive in the midst of all this chaos.
Okay, so let's get into it. What's the first thing he suggests?
Well, he starts with what he calls a karmic release ritual. It's a powerful way to actively break those invisible cords that have been keeping you tethered to the past,
Hmm.
to those outdated patterns and beliefs that are no longer serving you.
A ritual? Huh, that sounds intriguing. I'm picturing candles, incense, maybe some chanting involved.
There's definitely a ceremonial aspect to it, but it's not as complicated as you might think. Lorenzo provides very clear instructions.
Okay, so like what do we need?
You need a black candle, which represents absorbing old energy, a white candle, which symbolizes a new path, a pen and paper, and a fireproof dish or a bowl of water.
Okay, I'm getting a sense of the vibe here.
Yeah.
So what's the next step?
He instructs you to write down everything that's been weighing you down. You know, those roles you felt trapped in, the people or situations that drain your energy, the fears that have kept you playing small.
So it's like a cosmic brain dump.
Exactly. Get it all out of your head and onto the page.
Okay, and then what?
Then comes the dramatic part. You read what you've written out loud, almost like you're making a declaration to the universe.
Hmm?
You state your intention to break those karmic contracts, to release those old patterns, to free yourself from those limitations, and then you burn the paper, letting the ashes fall into the water or the fireproof dish.
Wow, that's powerful. I can see how that would be a really cathartic experience.
It is. It's about releasing that old energy, you know, those things that have been holding you captive, both physically and symbolically.
So there's this element of destruction, of burning away what no longer serves you, but it's not just about that, right?
Right. Lorenzo then instructs you to light the white candle, focusing on your intention to step onto a new path. To create a life that's more aligned with your true self, it's about replacing those old limiting beliefs with empowering affirmations.
I love that it's like taking back your power and declaring to the universe that you're ready for something new, something better.
Exactly. It's a powerful shift in energy.
But Lorenzo doesn't stop there, right? He's got more tools in his karmic toolbox.
Oh, you know, he's all about giving you practical strategies to work with these energies. And the next tool is the Journal of Unfinished Business.
Okay, a journal that makes sense this eclipse is happening in Virgo, which is all about details and analysis. So journaling feels like a perfect way to process all this intense energy.
Exactly. Lorenzo provides a series of journal prompts specifically designed to help you uncover those lingering karmic issues that might be playing out in your life.
Okay, like what kind of prompts are we talking about?
He asks questions like, what are those repeating patterns that are no longer serving you? What roles were you playing back in March 2005 that you're ready to let go of?
Ooh,
What are you afraid to lose that might actually be setting you free?
wow. Those are some deep questions.
They are, and they're designed to make you think, to really dig deep and get honest with yourself about what's been holding you back.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture. Journaling can be such a powerful way to reconnect with yourself and get clarity on what you truly want.
It is, and Lorenzo emphasizes the importance of forgiveness during this process. Forgiving yourself for past mistakes, forgiving others for any hurt they might have caused you.
Yeah.
It's about releasing that baggage so you can move forward with a lighter heart.
So it's not just about dwelling on the past and analyzing your mistakes. It's about using those experiences to learn and grow.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we've done the karmic release ritual. We've filled our journal of unfinished business. What's next?
Okay, so once you've done the inner work, Lorenzo encourages you to shift your focus to the future, to actively create the life you want.
Yeah.
And that's where the one-sentence shift comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this one-sentence wonder.
It's a powerful exercise in reframing your beliefs. Lorenzo asks you to craft a single sentence that defines your new path, a statement that replaces those old limiting beliefs with an empowering affirmation.
So instead of saying, I'm stuck in a dead-end job, you might say, I'm creating a career that fulfills me and allows me to use my unique talents.
Exactly. Or instead of, I always end up attracting the wrong partners, you might say, I'm worthy of a loving, supportive relationship. It's about shifting your mindset and declaring to the universe what you're ready to receive.
But one sentence can't be enough, right? It takes more than just words to create lasting change.
You're absolutely right. Lorenzo emphasizes the importance of repetition.
Yeah.
He wants you to say this sentence every day, multiple times a day, if you can, almost like a mantra.
Yeah.
It's about reprogramming your subconscious mind and aligning your energy with your desired outcome.
It's like creating a new groove in your brain, a pathway that leads to a different reality.
Love that analogy.
So we've got our one sentence on repeat, and What else?
To further amplify this shift, Lorenzo suggests an eclipse manifestation affirmation. This one's all about standing in front of the mirror, looking yourself in the eye, and declaring your freedom from the past.
That's powerful. I love that visual.
Yeah.
So what kind of things are you saying in this affirmation?
You're acknowledging that the karmic debt is paid, that you're releasing those old patterns, and that you're stepping into your highest destiny with courage and confidence. It's like giving yourself a cosmic pep talk
I like it.
and reminding yourself of your power to create the life you want.
Okay, now we're talking. That's the kind of energy I need to channel during this eclipse. But Lorenzo doesn't just want us to talk the talk, right? He wants us to walk the walk.
He knows that real transformation requires more than just words and rituals.
Yeah.
It requires action. And that's why he emphasizes the importance of taking immediate action, what he calls closing one door right now.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
It's about putting those intentions into practice and making a tangible change in your life, no matter how small.
Exactly. Lorenzo urges you to pick one thing that represents the old cycle, the thing you're ready to let go of, and end it today.
Like, what kind of things are we talking about?
This could be quitting a toxic habit, blocking a draining person, saying no to an obligation you don't actually want to fulfill, or even clearing out your closet of clothes you never wear.
It's about making a bold statement to the universe that you're serious about this change and ready to move on.
Exactly. And Lorenzo believes that the moment you take that decisive action, you'll start to see signs, synchronicities, and new opportunities opening up for you.
It's like taking that first step creates a ripple effect, setting a chain of events in motion that leads you closer to your desired outcome.
Precisely. And he ends his guidance with a powerful reminder. This is a one-time window, a cosmic doorway that's closing fast. He's not trying to scare you, but he is emphasizing the urgency of this moment.
Yeah.
The need to seize this opportunity for transformation before it slips away.
Okay, so no pressure.
Right.
Right? But seriously, he's saying that this eclipse is a game changer. And if you're not willing to step up and make some changes, you're going to miss out on a major opportunity for growth.
Exactly. He's saying that if you choose to walk through this doorway, you're entering a reality where your energy is no longer drained by those old karmic debts. You can finally start receiving the abundance, love, and fulfillment you deserve.
It's like stepping out of a prison of your own making and into a world of infinite possibilities.
But if you hesitate, if you cling to those familiar patterns and fears, you risk signing yourself up for another cycle of struggle and sacrifice.
So it really is a choice point, a crossroads, where you decide which path you want to take, the path of fear or the path of freedom.
Exactly. And the question is, which side of the door do you want to be on?
That's such a powerful question, and it's something I think we all need to ask ourselves, not just during this eclipse, but in every area of our lives.
I agree. It's a constant process of choosing between staying stuck in what's comfortable and familiar or taking a leap of faith and stepping into the unknown.
So what stood out to you the most from Lorenzo's guidance? What resonated with you on a personal level?
Honestly, it was the emphasis on immediate action. It's so easy to get caught up in the mental side of things, analyzing our patterns, making elaborate plans for the future.
Yeah.
But Lorenzo is reminding us that real change happens in the present moment through those seemingly small but decisive actions that shift our energy and set a new course for our lives.
I totally agree. It's about bridging the gap between knowing and doing, between intention and action.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just think about making a change. You have to actually take that first step, no matter how scary it might seem.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be this huge dramatic gesture. It can be as simple as saying no to something that drains your energy, clearing out a drawer full of clutter, or finally signing up for that class you've been wanting to take.
It's those seemingly small acts of courage that can create the biggest shifts in our lives.
Absolutely. And I think what Lorenzo is really getting at is the power of choice. We always have a choice, even in the midst of these intense cosmic events. We can choose to cling to the past, to stay stuck in those familiar patterns of fear and limitation. Or we can choose to embrace the unknown, to trust our intuition, and to step into the fullness of who we are meant to be.
And that choice, that act of conscious creation, is ultimately what determines our destiny.
Beautifully said.
So before we move on to part 3, where we'll be exploring how all this plays out in a real-life scenario, I want to encourage our listeners to take a moment and really absorb what we've discussed so far.
Definitely.
What are those old patterns you're ready to release?
Yeah.
What is that one door you're ready to close? What is that one step you can take today to move closer to the life you truly desire?
These are powerful questions to ponder, and as we move into part 3, keep them in mind.
All right, we'll be right back for the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've spent the last two parts really exploring Lorenzo's predictions for Sagittarius during this intense eclipse period.
It's been a lot.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff, but now I'm kind of curious to see how all of this cosmic energy might play out in a real-life scenario.
Yeah, so Lorenzo does something really interesting in this reading. He creates a fictional character, someone who embodies all of these astrological themes we've been discussing.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a way to make these abstract concepts more relatable,
Right.
to see how they might manifest in someone's life.
I like that. So tell me about this character. Who are we dealing with?
Okay, so he calls this story The Eclipse Reckoning, a karmic tale of destiny.
Ooh, traumatic.
And our protagonist is a guy named Daniel. He's a Sagittarius who's been kind of sleepwalking through life, stuck in a rut, feeling completely unfulfilled.
So a classic Sagittarius, always reaching for the stars, but sometimes losing their way.
Exactly. Lorenzo describes Daniel as someone who's been playing a role for so long that he's forgotten who he really is. He's the reliable employee, the dutiful son, the always agreeable friend.
Yeah.
But inside, he's dying a slow death.
Ooh, that's sad. And this eclipse, with all of its karmic weight, is about to shake things up for him in a big way.
Oh, absolutely. The story starts on the night of the eclipse, and Daniel is alone in his apartment, feeling the weight of like 1,000 bad decisions. His job sucks, his relationships are strained, and his dreams have been gathering dust for years.
Sounds like a lot of us can relate to that feeling. So what happens next? How does this eclipse start to impact his life?
Well, the first domino to fall is his job. He gets laid off suddenly and unexpectedly.
Ooh.
It's like the rug gets pulled out from under him.
That's classic 10th house energy, right? That shake up in career and public image that Lorenzo talked about.
Yeah, and remember he said that with the South Node involved, anything that's not aligned with your true purpose is going to crumble.
It's going to go down.
Yeah.
So it's not just about losing a job. It's about realizing that you've been investing your time and energy in something that's not truly fulfilling.
Exactly.
Something that's not aligned with your soul's calling.
Right.
So it's a wake-up call, even if it's a painful one.
It is. And for Daniel, it's just the beginning. Shortly after losing his job, his relationship implodes too.
Ouch, double whammy.
Right. But
Yeah.
again, it's that 8th house energy at work.
Yeah.
Lorenzo talked about forced endings, power struggles, and a need to confront what's been hidden. And that's exactly what happens to Daniel. He realizes he's been in love with an idea of this person, not the actual person.
So he's been living a lie, in a way.
Yes, and this eclipse is forcing him to face the truth no matter how uncomfortable it might be.
So now he's lost his job, his relationship is over, and I'm guessing he's feeling pretty lost and alone.
He's basically been stripped bare, left with nothing but the bare bones of his life. But here's the thing. In that emptiness, in that space of complete and utter loss, something amazing happens.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happens to Daniel? Does he spiral?
No, he doesn't. Instead of panicking, he starts to remember who he really is. The dreams he buried under the weight of responsibility and other people's expectations. He remembers his passion for creative writing, something he abandoned years ago because he thought it was too risky, too impractical.
So the eclipse basically cleared the way for him to reconnect with his true self.
Exactly. It stripped away all those layers he'd built around himself, all those masks he'd been wearing, and revealed the authentic person underneath.
And how does he respond to this newfound clarity?
He embraces it.
Good for him.
He decides to take a leap of faith and pursue his writing to finally create something of his own, something that brings him joy and fulfillment.
It's that Uranian energy we talked about, right? That willingness to embrace change, to step into the unknown.
Yes.
And to trust that everything will work out.
Exactly. He's no longer listening to those voices of fear and doubt. He's following his heart, even if it means facing uncertainty and stepping outside of his comfort zone.
So how does the story end? Does Daniel find happiness?
Well, Lorenzo ends the story on a hopeful note.
Okay, good.
Daniel is scared, of course, because he's venturing into uncharted territory.
Yeah.
But there's also this new sense of purpose, a feeling that he's finally on the right path.
It's a classic example of how these eclipses, while often intense and challenging, can ultimately be incredibly liberating.
Yes.
They shake us away, force us to confront those things we've been avoiding.
Right.
And create space for something new and beautiful to emerge.
And in Daniel's case, it took losing everything he thought he needed to finally find himself.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes what we perceive as loss is actually a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. It's often in those moments of breakdown that we experience the greatest breakthroughs.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts. What can our listeners, those who might not be going through a simultaneous job loss and breakup, What can they take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Even though this eclipse is specific to Sagittarius, the energy is universal.
Hmm.
It's a call for all of us to examine our own lives, to identify those areas where we're playing a role, where we've silenced our true desires, where we're clinging to something out of fear rather than love.
It's about asking ourselves those tough questions. Am I living a life that truly fulfills me?
Yeah.
Am I aligned with my soul's purpose? What needs to change?
Exactly. And even if we're not facing dramatic outer upheavals like Daniel, this eclipse can still trigger internal shifts, a dismantling of old beliefs, a shedding of outdated identities.
It's a time for deep introspection, for connecting with our intuition,
Yeah.
and for making those sometimes scary but ultimately liberating choices that align us with our highest potential.
And to bring it back to Lorenzo's final thought-provoking question,
Yeah.
which side of the door do you want to be on?
Ooh.
The one that leads to freedom, growth, and the realization of your soul's truest desires? Or the one that keeps you trapped in the same cycles of struggle and sacrifice?
That's a question that's going to stay with me for a long time, and hopefully our listeners will take it to heart as well.
I hope so too, because ultimately the choice is always ours.
This has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, the stars are always speaking, even when we're not listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep aliving, and keep shining your light on the world.